In mid-2016, when construction crews began moving into Muskrat Falls, Labrador to begin flooding for the Lower Churchill Hydroelectric project, they were blocked by protesters from nearby First Nations and Inuit communities. At this time, the project was $4 billion over budget. It would flood traditional trapping territories on the unceded land of the Innu people, and it would likely raise methyl mercury levels in the surrounding waters, affecting the safety of the river's fish as a food source for nearby Innu and Inuit residents. This project used text analysis to investigate the ways in which Canadian media organizations portrayed the Muskrat Falls project and the actions by Innu and Inuit community members opposing the project. How does the coverage from national media sources differ from that of the local media? On what grounds is the project being criticized? Is the media primarily concerned with the project as an economic enterprise or as an environmental issue? These are the questions that I began with. So this project took a lot of inspiration from discussions around NATO's low-level flight tests conducted in Labrador in the 1980s and the resistance by Innu people to that project. In this case, national and international media generally were sympathetic to Innu protesters, while local media generally were not. An important thing to understand about Newfoundland is the province's economic anxieties about being either a have or a have-not province. And these economic anxieties are often borne out in the way that the media talks about economic development in the province. So this project examined news articles from 4 news sources, 2 national and 2 local to Newfoundland and Labrador. The national sources were the CBC and the National Post, and the local sources were the Telegram and the Independent newspapers. It analyzed 226 articles published by these sources over an 8-month period from April to November of 2016. Articles were analyzed using Voyant text analysis tool, and looking at the data that emerged in Voyant, the 2 themes that emerged for me were 1, the framing of the issue based on either its environmental or its economic dimensions, and 2, the language that media sources use to talk about direct action political tactics. Regarding this first point, I had expected to see representations differ along geographic lines. However, the National Post actually showed the strongest tendency towards using words that framed the issue as an economic one, using words like cost and power when speaking about measuring the amount of electricity to be generated by the dam. The Independent, on the other side, showed a strong preference for words that framed the issue as an environmental one, using words like land, lake, and methyl mercury. Regarding the language used to discuss direct action tactics on the part of the Innu and the Inuit, 3 of the 4 news sources showed a strong preference for words like protesters and activists. And as many other scholars have pointed out, the problem with framing actions in this way is that it flattens the historical context behind those actions, and it represents direct action political tactics as being token acts of defiance rather than deliberate strategies with explicit political outcomes. So from these perspectives, these sources might be seen as being kind of complicit in overlooking the wider political significance of these actions. However, the Independent, the local newspaper from Newfoundland and Labrador, was the one source that rejected these words in favor of the term land protector. However, the phrase land protector only became available to the editorial staff of the Independent to use after the phrase water protector had been popularized by the direct action tactics of members of the Standing Rock Indian Reservation in North Dakota, sometime around August of 2016. So what this project revealed for me was the lack of good options for journalists to use to describe direct action political tactics without erasing intent and context, and how this can potentially really color the ways that these actions get interpreted by a news-reading public. So really, in a way, my project kind of serves as a foil to the theme of this conference, as it's based on the print paradigm of media, and that it actually speaks to issues of interpretation and partisanship that dominated the old terrain on which truth was previously contested. But perhaps my work can help to provide some insight about the relationship between these interpretive and post-truth eras.